welcome to another episode of Blighty Talks Bricks. This is a first, actually. It's a first because my guest today is my first female guest, and I'm very proud of that. In the property industry, most of the people against the grain, most of the people I've worked with are females, and it's always a pleasure to work with females. I always enjoy their company, and I think they've got a great understanding of commercial business, which is something that's underrated. But so I'm really excited to have my first female guest. I'm also nervous, and I'm also super excited because I'm not really sure where this conversation is going to go, but I know we're going to have a blast, going to have a great time. My guest is the very, very delightful Marie Gough, and welcome.
Thank you. I feel really quite honoured to be your first female.
Well, it was chosen because I think what we're going to touch on is important, and for our viewers that are actually watching, you'll be seeing that I'm sitting in something that indoors looks a bit out of place, but this is my lovely warm coat that I put on when I get out of my cold water tub at home.
They're like duvets, aren't they?
They are like duvets. They're very soft.
Duvets with pockets.
Well, you mentioned about pockets just as I was putting it on. I don't really normally put only my gloves because my hands get cold. And my feet get cold.
I know.
But maybe what I should be concentrating in is my breathing, which I'm not. Believe it or not, I'm not very good at breathing. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you, because this is what you specialise in.
Yeah.
But really what brought my attention to you, other than obviously I know your husband.
Yeah.
But really what brought my attention to you was, I read a quote, and I hope this quote is right. Your ambition is to help people find calm, happiness and balance in their work, relationships and in life. And hello, I need a bit of help. So
do you know what we all do, if we're honest? I think it's I think one of the greatest things I've learnt with my work is it's given me that sense of freedom to use my voice, to share a bit of my story, I think we get lost in the chaos of life. And that's what I mean. I say I want to be sort of almost just that hand to help you find a bit of calm amongst the chaos. And I think having these open conversations is refreshing for people. You know, I think we are getting better at it, but I think for me it's given me a sense of freedom. This is how I am, this is what I've been through, and this is how I'm going to help you. And I think that makes me more relatable.
When did you realise that you wanted to do this, or when was the time that you felt actually, I don't know if it comes from confidence or from a place of maybe not being in a good place, but you felt that you could say, do you know what, this is what I am, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk about it?
Probably about 5 years ago. It's just before lockdown. I was reading or listening to a podcast about breath work, and I, probably like with a lot of people, I thought, breathing, come on, we're doing it naturally. It's an automatic function of the body. But then when I started to look back on, my experiences with anxiety and the impact of dysfunctional breathing on the body. So when we're anxious, we're hyperventilating, and if anyone listening is struggling with anxiety or had it, you get pins and needles, you get really locked in your head, you feel lots of physical symptoms. And I never had anyone say to me throughout 20 years of, if you want to call it self-exploration, how you're breathing, you're not breathing properly. So we can't change the chaos that's happening externally that is making us anxious, or the thoughts, but what we can do is we can calm down what's happening within the body. So when we're like this all the time, that's stressful. That's going to really impact our body. So for me, I listened to this podcast and I thought, wow, the penny sort of dropped. I want to learn about this. I want to learn about the science, not just lay on a mat and feel the benefits. I want to understand what's happening physiologically in the body when we breathe properly. So I first trained with pranayama breathwork, which is more the sort of ancient practice, sort of the more yogic, but still really powerful. And then I went on to train as an oxygen advantage coach about 2 years ago, which is a little bit more science-based. It's really sort of rising into sort of the public eye and becoming really recognised. And Patrick McEwen, the founder of that, who leads from the front with that one. He's really making inroads into helping people really believe the power of breathwork and how important it is.
It is interesting because, many moons ago, I wanted to be a professional golfer, and one of my golf coaches out randomly said, "Oh, don't forget, concentrate on your breathing." And it was like, I was dumbstruck at the time, and I don't think I do it well. I mean, I don't breathe in, breathe out, etc. But it definitely does help, especially when you're and going back to getting into cold water.
Yeah,
takes your breath away. It definitely does help when you're anxious. But how did you just wake up one day and go, "I want to do that"?
no, it's gradual. I mean, I like to listen to a lot of things that I can learn from. For me, primarily it was for me firstly, because I found I was grasping externally too much. Therapists, counsellors, immersive retreats, and I'm not talking Champneys, I'm talking Hoffman process. I did that, and that was almost like a spiritual disembowelment, but it opened me up. It made me really look inside myself. So, and I can't talk too much about that. 'Cause, anyone who wants to do it, it's sort of like the secret thing. You don't say too much. But that really helped me. But I think it was a gradual process. But then when I heard this particular podcast, I can't remember what it was called, but it was more about the science and what's happening in the body. And I thought, this is what I need. This is where... And I remember saying to my husband for years, so I'm sort of backtracking, but I said, why am I the one out of all my family? We've all had sort of similar part of upbringings.
Yeah.
Why am I the one who's doing all this self-exploration? Why am I the one who's feeling things more, it seems, on the surface? He said, you're not. They're just blocking it.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's, I go back to when I was growing up, where we're recording this from the studio today in Shoreditch, is 3 minutes from where I was born, 4 minutes from my first junior school, and 4 minutes from my first senior school. Mm-hmm. If we could go back in time and said to my father and his brothers and to my uncles, and men didn't show emotion. If they did, it wasn't a good thing. And there's one thing when I spoke to you a couple of days ago, just to talk about today, there was one thing you made a really good point. You pulled me up on it, and you made a really good point to me that struck with me. And if I can have your blessing, I'd like to use it going forward. Go ahead. I said to you that I struggle. Steve Blight struggles with his mental well-being, and you immediately said to me, "Well, I don't like that word. I prefer the word emotional." And it really struck a chord with me last week, because that's what would have been said back in the generation. And he's mental.
And where do we go when we use that word?
And then back in that day, we then think they're a Fruit Loop, a nutcase.
Nutter.
They're going to end up in some sort of Victorian home.
Institution.
Absolutely. And so if I can have your blessing, I'd like to use that word for me going forward.
Please.
With my emotional wellness.
Yeah.
Which I struggle. But it's interesting, it wasn't allowed, it wasn't the thing to do. So what Darren said to you was right, because you found the courage to talk about it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I think maybe I'm just different to them, I'm curious, I want to understand myself. I don't want to block my emotions, I am a very deeply feeling person, but I think I said to you, but I have this fierceness, and I think it confuses people because they think, God, you've got such emotional depth, but by God, I'm not afraid to sort of put up a fight if I need to. So I think that's a little bit of an anomaly, but I think I've had to have that fire, because I don't know if I hadn't have had that, where I'd be. And that's me being really honest. So I was saying to the driver on the way here, we had a lovely little chat, and I said, with my upbringing, I could have gone down a very messy path. Yeah. Very messy. But I chose to be the carer. I took on the role of being the parent.
But you did that, again, just on some of my research, you did that from, I think, your statements where you felt you had chronic burnout and anxiety.
Yeah.
So, and you said you've just made the point that you could have easily gone down another road.
Yeah.
Where did you get that energy, that power? Because a lot of people don't, do they? They get themselves, if someone who suffers from anxiety and they've had burnout, and they've had challenges in their life, it's very easy. I mean, the people that are coming out and talking to me now are saying there are days they don't want to get out of bed.
That I know that feeling very well.
Where does it come? Is there something we can find? Was it the exercises that got us here for you? For me, mine's in a different way. And on all of the Blighty Talks Bricks, I touch on this situation of emotional wellness, to see what mechanisms they use. And people they use different mechanisms. And I think I'm trying to get that out with the help of people like yourself, so that people are struggling it might be just one thing that clicks in for them.
I think, do you know what, if there's anyone listening to this now, is no feeling is permanent, because it throws you into complete state of helplessness when you feel anxious. It makes you feel very small. And in a way, it's sort of almost, we believe it's unconsciously like a protection to stop us from moving into our life. So something has happened in our lives that is sort of, and I think some people are more susceptible to anxiety, generally quite deep thinkers, quite sensitive people. And when I use the word sensitive, and I talked about this on the way here, I don't mean soft. I mean, we just feel things more. We have more awareness of what's going around us. I was like that since I was very young. So I think it was something that was just, I was born with as well. I had this curiosity and this awareness from a very young age. But also, I've got to say, I was very lucky. I realised the storm that was brewing within me when Darren and I were together and I had my first child. That's when all of my upbringing, all of my childhood sort of came out of me in a very powerful way that was very uncomfortable, because I becoming a mother to me was everything I ever wanted, but it reminded me of what I lacked in my life.
Right.
So, but I had the luxury of being able to afford some of the best care I had. And it was a luxury because I know there's so many people there struggling in high-rise buildings who have got kids, they've got no support. I was very lucky, so I need to say that. I could get the help, I could pay for it, I could get myself into therapy. And I think, but also you have to want to do it. I wanted to do it. So I think a big part of it is you've got to just be not afraid to move into something that's very uncomfortable, which is looking yourself deeply in the mirror and working through some very uncomfortable layers of your life. I think that's probably a great strength for people when they can do that.
And I can understand that, because it was for me, I went a lovely upbringing in the East End of London. I was loved, but no money. Obviously of an age where it was frowned upon to talk about your emotional feelings. But as I got older, I think COVID affected me really badly. Lockdown I wasn't a supporter of a lockdown. It gets me into hot water with some people. I'm certainly not a lover of Great Britain PLC working from home. But I think that and other things just got the better of me. And I ended up in not a dark place where I couldn't get out of bed, because for some reason I had lots of energy. But I looked into that mirror, which has never been a great look for me anyway. But I looked into that mirror, and like you say, I really didn't like what I saw. And that was my behaviour patterns that were irrational, unfair. And that was my starting point. And the one thing that I've said to people is, as long as you recognise you've got a problem, there is help. But until you recognise that,
it's the awareness.
Yeah.
I say it's the awareness. So with anything, whether it be you want to start, doing a training thing, whether you want to get some emotional support, whether you want to create better relationships, you're not going to do it, whether you want to change a bad habit, none of that happens if the penny doesn't drop.
And you didn't.
That's why people end up in addiction, because they just want to steamroll their way through. And I completely understand how that happens. And I've lived very closely with that, with a sort of external family member. I've seen the destruction but it's almost like they weren't aware. They just wanted to keep numbing. So awareness, 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 and then trust that you're going to be okay. And also, you know, it's that when you look in the mirror, it's you need to peel back all of those layers of life that have given you the identification of who you are today. Who were you before all of those things came into your life? Who were you before, you know, the success or the material things you have? Who is that person I'm looking at? Strip back completely.
Well, it's
a difficult question for a lot of people.
No, it is a difficult
answer.
question. It's a difficult question. This is a difficult conversation. One of the things that did strike me, I mean, we're getting some real good feedback now from the people that are starting to watch podcasts, which is brilliant to be, because it's all down to my guests. And the other thing that you carry on is, which is now becoming part of this podcast, is I have lovely people on. And just spending 15 minutes with you so far, I can just tell you're a lovely person, and it's so nice. But one of the things that I want to do, are we getting this? The audience that's watching me, I'm being told, is between 29 and 40, mainly male. Do we get this emotional question out early enough? So we talk about the things, our upbringing, we talk about, you know, age is against me, nearly 60, but I wonder now if I'd had some better freedom as a youngster.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the older people, as a youngster, to express.
Yeah.
Do we get that message out to those people at the moment?
I think we are. I think we're getting there. That it's changed greatly. I mean, my sons are 26 and 29, and even when they were small, I would really encourage them to cry.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't dash yourself up, shut up. That's for wimps. It's such bad language to use, because, again, a conversation I had on the way here, I think for men, you know, our ancestors, you know, the males were going out hunting. So they'd have their weapons in their hand. They were just thinking of one thing, putting food on the table, surviving. The women were all communicating. They were all gathering. They were all talking. They were multitasking. And actually, it's quite similar now. You know, the men still feel they've got to go out and sort of provide and, you know, not show the emotions. So I think, again, for anybody, you know, please encourage men. I feel very passionately about helping. I work with men as well, because I'm a mother of 2 men, and it's so important. I encourage them greatly. It's like TED Talks going off in my kitchen. And I said, believe me, one day I hope you remember these conversations, because I never want you to feel, we've lost 2 friends to suicide, very close friends of ours, men, beautiful, beautiful people. And when those things have happened, I've said, promise me you never, ever feel that there's no way out. There's always a way out.
Yeah.
Never give up. Promise me. Come to me with anything, whether it's medicine, therapy, something. I will support you. You know.
And I've had that as well. You know, there were suicides that were involved in my life before COVID, but a couple, to be honest. Since COVID now, there's 7 or 8 situations. A couple close, but and it seems more prevalent. It seems, I don't know whether that's social media. I know this is social media. I get in trouble again, but whether social media is out of control,
pressure.
puts loads of pressure on. We've got to look great. We've got to sound great. We've got to do this. Got to do that.
Got to look a certain way, be a certain size, dress a certain way, train so many times. It's endless. I'm 55. I feel it. And that's a 27 years of experience with work, the inner work. So if I can be triggered by it at times, not always, not very often actually, how are young girls and young men feeling looking at that who don't have that experience that I've got? That's tough.
One of the other things that's registered with me from conversations, and as I say, I work with a lot of females, and I'll take the ignorance blame here. I'm quite happy to take it for men in general here, is the menopause. You know, it's...
Men have the menopause.
Well, so I'm told.
Yeah.
So I'm told. We're not very good at understanding it. And our way, and I spend a lot of time in male company, is to knock it off with a joke. And I just think, wow, we need to understand it better. You know, I'm a bit naive to it and need to wise up to it and get a better understanding of it. And again, if I think about having that conversation 30 years ago, I would have got laughed at.
Yeah, again, another thing, like with breath work, menopause, I work with, someone who's very prominent within this industry. She's just brought out a book. It's on the bestsellers list. I'm one of her sort of top facilitators. She's got an app. It's a conversation that's got to be had. You know, I got thrust into mine early I had a couple of traumas quite close together, and I went from having normality to a shit show, is the way I'm going to describe it. It was like, what is happening? And it's like, I can only describe it as something entering your body and you don't know who you are anymore. It is horrendous for some women, for a lot of women actually, not some. It's an absolute roller coaster. You don't know what's happening with your body shape changes, so you're almost grieving. You're old, you know, you're not loving yourself as much anymore, but then your mind is going into a myriad of stories about yourself. You've got all the physical symptoms. It isn't pleasant at all.
And I've asked a few friends, since I've been doing a podcast, I've asked a few of my male friends, and the answer that comes back is, we don't know what to do. Now, okay, you can go and read up on the internet, you can go and but is there something that generally we've got 29 to 40-year-olds here, getting a bigger following day by day. Is there three bits of advice that you could give to us, that age group and older? What can us men do to help if we feel that our partner is going through the menopause? It's like everything in it. I'm not very good at dealing with members of my family that become ill because
it's because you want to fix it.
Well, because I want to fix it.
Men want to be fixers.
I can't fix it. And I struggle with it. Struggle.
Well, the first thing is you can't fix it. So if you take that pressure off yourself, then you're sort of a little bit more open because you're not putting that expectation on to fix it. Secondly is listen. Just listen. You know, try not to react quite as much, because I remember I was highly reactive. But I was dealing with sort of the difficult things that sort of thrust me into it in the first place. So I was unraveling from all of that as well. So you become very irrational. I was very irrational. I was very short-tempered. And then it can become a battle. And then when you get locked in a battle, the symptoms of the menopause always become worse. So it's a vicious circle. So it's almost like you can't fix it. Just listen. And just
empathy.
Just empathize. But more importantly, get the education. Do a little bit of reading up on it. I used to say to Darren, please read this. Listen to this podcast. You know, there's great podcasts out there. And I know it can be boring. But just the more sort of armed we are with any challenge that we're dealing with personally or with somebody we love, the more educated you are on it, the more you're going to be able to sit in a really sort of present state with that person. Instead of, you know, we're always going to get into battles. It's going to happen, but you're not normal if you don't. But just don't bite at every sort of reaction. If you know, your partner is going through quite a challenge with the menopause, it's not nice at all to go through. It's horrible.
This Blighty Talks Bricks is aimed at the property market. There's a clue in the title. But it's about trying to actually get a wider understanding of what our life's about, for us to understand that we do have a problem in this country with not enough homes. We're 3.5 to 4 million short. We're not building enough. And there was a great guy who sadly passed away, Tony Pisley, who once said to me that if we don't provide accommodation and the opportunity for everyone in the country to live, and treat them like animals, they'll end up like animals.
Exactly. And then we've got a whole different problem.
And so what I don't want this to be is we'll just go and build property. Let's build the right kind of property in the right kind of environment, for the right kind of cultures, but actually to also understand that the processes we make come from actually understanding ourselves.
Exactly, and I say to people, interestingly, when you were saying that, I thought I do a Sunday night session, and I always refer to this as our home, not the house.
Yeah.
That's material. Material is nothing, really. This is the home we need to be looking after. You want to look at this as your bricks and mortar. This needs all of our sort of love and attention. Yes, we want a nice, cozy, comfortable home. Doesn't have to be anything, extravagant. It's, and we have the safety of that bricks and mortar, and we have a lovely bed. But actually, this is what we need to be looking after. So I always say to people, how is your home feeling or looking right now? And they can sort of go, what? How's your landscape? How is this all feeling? How is your home? And then when they sort of just start to sort of calm and just quieten things down, you can have really big responses just from asking them that one question. There can be tears just coming out of their eyes, rolling down their cheeks, and you think, I haven't really asked them anything. But they're never looking inward. They're always looking externally.
So the cold water bit came to me because if I go back 7, 8, 9 months now, where I realised I had a problem, one of the things that I'd looked at was, and I'd seen it through sport really, and how do I get better? Because if I had my way, I'd be going in a snorkel, flippers, a diving
Eskimo suit,
woolly hats,
everything, yeah.
How do I overcome this challenge? Because I know there's other people that are a bit like me.
Yeah, of course. And you know, I have days, I think it's just I think we can look at Google and look at Instagram again and see people going under the ice. And it's that whole sort of intimidation and expectation that then we put on ourselves. With the cold, anything under 15 degrees, you're going to get benefits from.
Is it really?
Under 15 degrees and below, or 16 degrees and below, you'll get benefit from. So I'd say if you're doing it, just go, that's enough. So sometimes I'll have my tank set at maybe 8 degrees, because I've got one of those machines. So I think, no, I don't want to do anything. That's hard enough for me at the moment.
That's okay?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that.
Do you know 8 degrees is actually a really nice sort of 10 to 8, or down to 8, is a really good maintenance. Then if you want to sort of, I almost refer to it as picking up a heavier weight in a gym, but you've adapted to the sort of 8 to 10, then take it down. Just start to take it down a little bit, but you've got to be really careful to not push it too much, because then you're going to end up depleted. So a lot of people get into this ego dipping. I'm going to do 20 minutes in 0. You're going to be absolutely screwed next week.
20 minutes?
Yes, some people are doing. I had an inbox message the other day that I actually did a reel on, or a live the other day. I talked about the cold, because everyone's getting really excited because it's really cold and there's ice on top of their tanks, and it's like, how long should I do? Whoa, this is amazing. And it's like somebody messaged me and went, I felt a bit weird. I came out of a lake. It was my first swim with a friend, and I did 10 minutes at 3 degrees. I felt really dizzy. I couldn't get my breath. And I said, you did 10 minutes for your first swim at 3 degrees? That's brutal. So it's just sort of another reflection of how we're living our lives, not being gentle with ourselves. We've evolved to feel we've got to be doing, achieving. This, got to look this way, got to be this way. And I think my voice now is saying to me, you don't have to be.
And then one more final bit. When I get into a cold tub and I'm
you want to gasp.
Yeah. Is there any trick? Is it?
Yes. Yeah. So the technique would be, so you've got the tank. I mean, and it's the same when you're going into the sea. Obviously, with the sea, you've got that gradients generally. So you're stepping probably, unless you go running in, but a lot of people don't want to do that in the winter. So with your tank, for example, you want to sort of take your breath in as you're about to step in. Then you step in, so you actually step into the water using your exhale. So, because I want you to, our inhale I think of as our sort of intention, our active part of our breath. And then the exhale is almost where we're letting go. We are just going,
So I'm best to go in slowly.
So step in on your exhale, but then don't hang around, because the more you hang around and you don't get your bum down, your mind is going to come in and go, don't like this. This is really uncomfortable. I'm not really in the mood. You'll come up with biblical lengths of excuses in about 10 seconds to get out. So I'm quite sort of, right, come on, in. So they're stood up, and then you lower down again. You take another inhale while you're stood up in the tank, and then lower down on your exhale. So just remember, I step in to the water on the exhale, I breathe in again, and then I lower down on the exhale. So it's literally just 2 rounds of inhale and exhale.
Okay.
The exhale is used for actually the introduction to the water and then the lowering down into the water.
So basically, in 4 weeks' time, this is on eBay, because I won't need this no more then, will I?
No, because when I get out, because you haven't been to our house, but I'm going to get you over there. I've got about 100 meters to walk from my tanks, and I was doing that in the snow, in a swimsuit, coming out the tank, walking up my garden, on the floor that's literally like needles under my feet because it was all frozen, but a bit of reflexology or acupuncture, and I'm walking up my garden because I feel warm, because I've just gone in a big cold tank.
Talking about feeling warm, and I do feel warm in it, when I get involved in charities, I get warm. You know, Darren and I are doing something for a charity that's close to your heart, which is Care for Wild. Just give me a couple of minutes on Care for Wild.
Oh, they are. I mean, Petronelle is the most. I think you met her at our event. She's the most inspiring woman I've ever met, and I don't say that easily to people. She's certainly on my inspirational list, and it's a very mutual relationship we have. So they are the largest rhino orphanage in the world. So they are
Rhino orphanage.
Yeah.
Just that word, just those 2 words. I mean, make me smile.
Yeah. So so they recover. So they will get a call from the bush, wherever that is. So the Kruger, wherever they've found, babies that are left behind or traumatized, and their mothers have been brutally murdered for their horns, which serve no purpose. The horn is like our fingernails. And just you can imagine through lockdown, it was terrible what was going on. And then there's some of the images, and so Darren and I, so they bring in, they look after them like they are children. They are cared for. They have the best medical care. They have the best medical teams, vets, security, dog teams, horseback teams, security. But it is the most beautiful place on earth. You go there and you just feel, you'd love it. You'd love it. I've done some cold therapy with them there in an old retro tub in the middle of this most beautiful space with rhinos in the background. So that's probably my most memorable session.
Is it, I mean, I think we're in recession. Certainly the property industries. Lots of charities that are close to my heart are struggling for income.
Yeah.
Is that the same for them?
They're doing okay, but we've got to just sort of keep doing what we can. So with the golf day, we did that last year. I think this year we won't do the big gala dinner, but we'll do sort of something a little bit lighter, just because we've got a lot on this year. So it's quite a big task organising those events. And as much as I say I've done all the inner work, I still like things just so. I'm very particular.
Absolutely.
When my name's on the tin, I'm quite... I like everything just so. So I just said, this year, let's have a year off, and we'll maybe do a golf day where it's a bit more light, a bit more fun.
Yep.
And if that raises 50 grand, brilliant. You transfer that over in the South African rand, is it? Yeah, it's rand. Menopause brain there. There we go. I can keep throwing that card in.
Mine's not menopause. Mine's called lack of intelligence.
Mine's menopause. So I'm just going to keep laying that one out there. I think it's 20 to 1, 20 of their rand to the pound. So, I mean, that's loads for them. Yeah.
Well, you can be assured of my support.
Thank you.
I'll certainly do what I can at my end. Talking about support, thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
I cannot believe how quickly time's flown.
I know.
And again, you've just carried out, I mean, the thing that strikes me the most about the podcast, the Blighty Talks Bricks bit, is the people that come on, and I've had a variation already, got a lovely list of people coming up. They're all just wonderful human beings. And I think in this cruel world that we're in, wars going off everywhere, most of the news you read is negative. I think it's really nice to actually for me, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with these people and you two. But Anna, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to putting this on eBay and getting out my cold water and feeling warm. And I'm going to put all of that down to your
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Honestly, you'll be fine. I think I'd just like to leave this with any listeners, if they're particularly struggling. You're not alone, and no feeling is permanent.
I'm not going to add anything to those fantastic words. Anna, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to have Marie Gough on today. Look after yourselves, take care, and just remember those lovely words from Anna.